My name is Nate Smithson. I've been a registered nurse for the last 4 years. I've worked in ICUs and ERs in Trauma One hospitals here in Utah. Yes, I have definitely experienced and witnessed misinformation in my professional field on a daily basis. In the ER especially, the people roll into the ER not knowing, or they do know, or they think that they know different things and what's going to help them. And that's not necessarily the case, but we get people oftentimes coming in when they're sick, and either they or a family member will start throwing out, well, have you tried this? Or why don't you do this? Or why don't you, what if we try hydroxychloroquine again? You know, that drug that was debunked like a year and a half ago at the beginning of this pandemic. There's still people out there holding on to that as some miracle cure when that's not the case. And they come in and they try to tell us how to do our jobs when we treat these patients daily and we know what's best for them, but they come in thinking and complaining, even thinking that they know better, and complaining about why we're not doing certain things when we know it's not going to help. So these days, that's a very popular one because there's a lot of people online talking about COVID and different, whether it's real or not even. Before COVID, there was a lot of people that they would go home, they would research things on their own, and then they would come back to the hospital the next day. They'd be like, well, I did my research, I did all this stuff, and I know what I'm talking about. So why aren't you guys doing this for my family member? Or why aren't you doing X, Y, and Z to help them get better? And we're like, what are you talking about? It's easier with COVID because we all know the trigger words, we all know the theories out there. With other things, there's a lot of different information out there on the internet, and they would come back with some things we'd never even heard of. But I don't necessarily have an argument for that because I've never heard of it. But this would be the doctor talking. They'd be like, I've never heard of it, but also I'm a doctor. I've specialized in this for the last 20 years. If I haven't heard of it, there's probably a reason why. And so yeah, it was prevalent before COVID, but it's a lot more common now. So many people think that it's implanted with a microchip, and that, all of the fun little buzzwords that we see on the internet. But I have family members even that I am very close to that haven't gotten the vaccine because they think that it's the government trying to control them. They're like, even if there's nothing in it, the government's just trying to control my body and what goes into it. So I'm not going to get the vaccine because of that. It's like, well, meanwhile, there's people dying. I have a cousin whose mom died a week ago of COVID, and she was very vocal about how COVID's not real. The government's just trying to control our bodies and control what we do with them and everything with these vaccines. I'm not going to get the vaccine. And then 50 years old, she gets COVID and dies a couple of weeks later. And it's terrible. It's sad because it didn't have to happen. There's a lot of evidence showing that even if you do get COVID after having the vaccine against it, it lessens the symptoms. And so likely if she had the vaccine beforehand, she wouldn't have died. She wouldn't have had those as severe of a reaction to it. But because of all the misinformation spreading out there, she didn't get the vaccine because of whatever theory or conspiracy theory she had heard. She decided to not get the vaccine and ended up getting COVID and dying from it. And it's things like that are terrible, and things like that are happening in the hospital all the time. Everyone that I have seen that gets admitted to the hospital with COVID is not vaccinated. And when we ask them why, it's 100% of the time. Well, okay, I can't say 100% of the time, but every single time I ask somebody why they haven't been vaccinated, they come back with something like, well, it's not important, or I'm not going to get that sick from it anyways. And it's, well, you are that sick from it. You're here in the hospital. It's too late now to get the vaccine, but you are that sick from it. Sometimes it's somebody in their 20s that's my age, and they get admitted to the hospital. I know another person that's been on a ventilator for the last 3 weeks, and he's my exact same age. He's 28, and it's terrible, and I feel terrible for them and for their families. And the saddest part is that it didn't have to happen in the first place. What I hear is people come in with COVID and they say, oh, give me the vaccine now. I was like, that's not going to work. The vaccine's to prevent you from getting it. It doesn't heal you once you have it. And they're just desperate as you're like about to intubate them. And they're like, no, it's going to be fine. Just give me the vaccine. I'll get the vaccine now. It'll be okay. And it's like, no, I'm sorry. That's not how vaccines work. And so there's an example of misinformation right there, is that they think that, oh, I don't have to get it now, I can always get it when I get sick. And that's not how they work. That's not how vaccines are set up to help society. It's to help with the immunity and prevention in the first place that I was talking about earlier. And it's a shame. Last year when hydroxychloroquine was taking over the airwaves and everyone was talking about how it was a miracle drug and everything, my hospital, the unit that I worked on, we were part of some of the first trials using it in COVID patients. And it was at the beginning of the outbreak, the pandemic, and we didn't know what was going to help. So we were just trying everything. We didn't know much about it at first, but the first couple months of treating people with COVID, we thought that all of them had terrible heart issues. We thought that COVID caused these heart problems. And once we stopped using the hydroxychloroquine, once we found that that wasn't effective, all of those things went away. And we're like, are you kidding me? We were causing these problems in the first place. We would have people whose hearts would stop, just like slow down and go down to nothing. You'd watch it on the monitor. It's like, oh, here it goes again. And then the hearts would completely stop. You'd rush in the room and do what you could to get the heart back. And usually we could with medications and with CPR and other things. And then, but after that, and so all of these patients that we were treating with hydroxychloroquine, we were just like, this is just part of COVID. Once we stopped using it, we found, oh, that's not part of COVID. That was just a side effect of the drug. Dangerous drug, it's not effective, it causes problems, don't use it. Really easy. And then you have people coming back and like, oh no, this is a miracle drug. This is what's gonna cure me. We'd have family members that were furious at us for not using this medication on their loved one that had been in the ICU for a month. We're like, no, you don't understand. I'm glad that I'm sorry really that you heard on Facebook that this is going to help, but it's really not. It's going to cause more problems. We know this because we've done research, and not only us, but other hospitals, other facilities and institutions around the world had done research on that medication, and we knew it wasn't helpful. If anything, it hurt more.